The small town of Riverhill was usually quiet after sunset. Shops closed early, streetlights came alive, and families gathered inside their homes. The night sky was clear and the stars shone brightly above the hills. People often said Riverhill was peaceful because nothing unusual ever happened there. But on this night, everything changed. It began with a strange light in the sky. At first, some thought it was a shooting star, bright and fast, racing across the darkness. But the light did not fade away. Instead, it grew bigger and brighter. People stepped out of their homes to watch. Children pointed upward and shouted with excitement. Farmers in the field stopped their work and stared. The light slowed down as it reached the edge of the town. It was not falling, but moving with control. A circle of blue fire spread across the clouds, glowing like a gate. Then the light came lower and lower until it rested in the empty field near the old mill. By now, many people had gathered. Some carried lanterns, others held their phones to record. Everyone whispered, unsure of what they were seeing. The air was quiet except for the buzzing sound of the strange glow. In the middle of the glowing circle, a figure appeared. It was small, standing alone on the grass. The light around the figure faded slowly, and the people saw what looked like a girl. She was no older than 12, her skin smooth and shining with a silver glow. Her hair was pale, almost white, and her eyes were wide, glowing softly like small lamps. She wore a simple suit made of a material no one could name. The crowd gasped. Some stepped back, afraid. Others leaned forward with curiosity. Children clung to their parents. The girl looked around, her glowing eyes moving from face to face. Her expression was calm, not angry or fearful, only searching. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft as if she had just learned the language. "Are you my daddy?" The words spread through the crowd like a spark. Some people laughed nervously, others frowned. A few whispered that it must be a trick. But the girl stood still, waiting for an answer. The sheriff of Riverhill, Mark, pushed through the crowd. He was a tall man with a steady voice. He had kept peace in the town for many years, but he had never faced something like this. He raised his hand to keep the crowd calm. "Who are you?" he asked firmly. "Where did you come from?" The girl tilted her head slightly as if trying to understand his question. Then she repeated the same words in the same soft voice. "Are you my daddy?" The people grew uneasy. A woman covered her mouth. A man shook his head. Nobody knew what to do. Mark tried again. "What is your name?" "Do you need help?" But the girl only blinked and asked once more, "Are you my daddy?" The crowd began to murmur louder. Some wanted to leave, afraid of what the girl might be. Others wanted to call the government right away. Children, however, were not afraid. A few even smiled at her glowing eyes. The girl did not move from the glowing circle. She seemed calm, almost gentle. But her question hung in the air like a puzzle no one could solve. Mark finally stepped closer. "Listen," he said quietly. "I don't know who you are, but we need to keep you safe." He reached out his hand. The girl looked at it for a long moment. Then slowly she placed her small silver hand in his. The glow around her body shimmered but did not hurt him. She stepped out of the circle, and the light behind her faded away until only darkness remained. The crowd parted as Mark led her toward the town hall. Everyone stared in silence. The girl walked calmly beside him, still scanning every face she passed. At the door of the hall she stopped, turned back to the crowd, and asked again in her soft voice, "Are you my daddy?" Nobody answered. The night air felt heavy, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Inside the hall, lights were switched on, and the girl sat quietly on a wooden chair. Mark stood near her, watching closely. She did not seem dangerous, but she was unlike anything he had ever seen. The townspeople gathered outside the windows, trying to see her. Whispers filled the air. Some thought she was lost. Some thought she was a sign from the stars. Others worried about what might follow her. But one thing was clear to everyone in Riverhill. The peaceful town was no longer the same. An alien girl had arrived, and she carried a question that no one could answer. "Are you my daddy?" The strange girl now sat inside the town hall of Riverhill. She looked small on the old wooden chair, her glowing silver skin making the room brighter than the lamps. Sheriff Mark stood nearby, his arms crossed, while the mayor and a few townspeople filled the room. More curious faces pressed against the windows outside, trying to get a glimpse. Everyone expected answers, but all they had so far was one question. The girl raised her glowing eyes and asked again, "Are you my daddy?" The mayor, a round man named Henry, cleared his throat nervously. "Child," he said, "we don't know who your father is." Can you tell us your name? The girl tilted her head slightly as if trying to understand. Her lips moved again with the same words. Are you my daddy? Some people chuckled uneasily. Others frowned, worried. The repetition felt strange, almost like she had learned only one sentence in their language. A teacher named Anna, who worked at the town's small school, stepped forward. She had always been gentle with children, and though she was nervous, she spoke kindly. Sweetheart, I am not your father, but maybe we can help you find him. Can you tell us where you came from? The girl smiled faintly but gave the same reply. Are you my daddy? Anna sighed, then looked at Mark and Henry. She doesn't seem to understand. Maybe her words are the only human ones she knows. The crowd whispered. One man muttered, She's not human at all. Look at her skin, her eyes. This isn't safe. Another said, She's just a lost child. Maybe she's mixed with human somehow. We can't turn her away. Mark raised his hand to calm the voices. Everyone, we need order. She hasn't harmed anyone. We must be careful but not cruel. Until we know more, she stays here under our watch. The girl listened quietly, her glowing eyes moving from one face to another, searching as if every person might be the one she was looking for. Each time her gaze settled on someone, she asked softly, Are you my daddy? The repetition began to unsettle the adults, but the children outside found it fascinating. They whispered to one another, daring each other to go inside and talk to her. For them, the girl seemed less like a threat and more like a story come alive. Mayor Henry rubbed his forehead. Mark, we need to call someone from the city. The government will want to know about this. Anna quickly shook her head. If you do that, they'll take her away. They won't treat her like a child. They'll lock her in some laboratory. The mayor looked uncomfortable. And what do you suggest, Anna? That we raise her here as one of our own? Look at her. She is not from this world. Mark stepped forward. Maybe she isn't, but she's here now. She's alone and she's asking for her father. That makes her more like a child than a monster. The argument made the crowd restless. Some supported Mark, believing kindness was the answer. Others feared trouble if they kept her. The whole town stood divided, and at the center of it all sat the silver-skinned girl, calm and quiet, waiting with her endless question. Night grew late, and Mark decided she should not stay in the hall with so many people around. He guided her gently toward a small guest room in the building. She followed without resistance, holding his hand as if she trusted him. Once inside, she sat on the bed and folded her glowing hands in her lap. Before leaving, Mark asked one last time, Do you understand me at all? Can you tell me anything about yourself? The girl looked up at him. Her eyes glowed brighter, and for a moment it felt like she wanted to say more. But then her lips formed the same words. Are you my daddy? Mark closed the door softly. He knew the whole town would not sleep that night. The mysterious girl had brought more questions than answers. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she searching for a father among strangers? One thing was certain. The people of Riverhill would never forget the night she arrived, and they would never hear her question without a chill running down their spine. Are you my daddy? By morning, the story of the silver-skinned girl had already spread beyond Riverhill. People from nearby towns drove in just to catch a glimpse. Some stood at the fences near the town hall, waiting to see her step outside. Reporters arrived with cameras, whispering questions and trying to interview the townspeople. Sheriff Mark tried to keep control, but it was not easy. The mayor had already made calls to the city, and by noon a convoy of black trucks rolled into Riverhill. Out stepped men and women in white suits, carrying machines and heavy cases. Leading them was a tall man with sharp eyes and gray hair, Dr. Lewis. Mark did not like the way the newcomers looked at the town. They moved as if they owned the place. Lewis shook the mayor's hand but spoke quickly, not wasting time. We will take over now. Where is the subject? She is not a subject, Mark said firmly. She is a child. Lewis gave him a thin smile. Child or not, she is not from here. She must be studied. The faster we understand her, the safer this town will be. Reluctantly, Mark led them inside. The girl was sitting quietly in the guest room, her glowing eyes fixed on the window. When the door opened, she turned her head slowly and smiled faintly. Lewis stepped closer, notebook in hand. What is your name? He asked. The girl blinked. Are you my daddy? Lewis paused, then wrote something in his notes. He tried again. Where did you come from? Are you my daddy? She repeated. Lewis frowned but did not give up. He asked about her age, her mother, her ship, her purpose. Each question received the same answer. Are you my daddy? The scientists surrounded her with strange devices. They scanned her body with lights, took samples from the chair she had sat on, and even tested the air around her. The girl did not resist. She sat calmly, watching them with glowing eyes. One machine beeped loudly, and the scientists grew excited. They found her blood was not like human blood. It glowed faintly under their lights. Yet mixed in with the strange elements, they saw something familiar, traces of human DNA. Lewis wrote quickly in his notebook. She is not fully alien. There is human in her. The question is how. Mark stood in the corner, watching with unease. To him, the girl looked less like a mystery and more like a lonely child. Every time she asked her question, her voice carried a note of sadness, as if she truly believed her father might be among them. When the scientists left the room to set up their equipment, Anna slipped inside. She knelt beside the girl and smiled kindly. Do you like it here? She asked gently. The girl tilted her head and whispered, Are you my daddy? Anna's heart ached. She brushed the girl's pale hair softly. No, I am not your father, but I can be your friend. For the first time, the girl did not repeat her question right away. She looked at Anna's hand on her hair and gave a small warm smile, but when Lewis returned, the moment ended. He announced that they would move her to a special tent outside, filled with machines and guards. The townspeople protested, but the mayor allowed it, believing the government knew best. That evening, the girl sat inside the glowing tent surrounded by wires and lights. The scientists asked questions again and again, their voices impatient. Each time she replied with the same soft words, Are you my daddy? The scientist grew frustrated, but Lewis did not stop writing in his notebook. To him, every repeated word was a clue, not nonsense. Mark watched from outside the tent, his jaw tight. The girl looked smaller than ever under the bright lights, her question echoing into the night. He wondered if anyone would ever give her the answer she needed, or if she would be forced to keep asking forever. The mystery of the silver-skinned girl was no longer just Riverhill's secret. It had become something far bigger, something that would soon involve more than just a small town. And yet, despite all the machines and questions, she remained the same, calm, glowing, and always asking in her gentle voice, Are you my daddy? The scientist worked day and night in their large tent outside the town hall. Wires covered the ground, machines hummed loudly, and guards stood at every corner. The silver-skinned girl sat quietly inside, answering every question with the same gentle words. Are you my daddy? The adults grew tired of hearing it. Some became frustrated. Dr. Lewis wrote endlessly in his notebook, convinced the girl's question had meaning. Sheriff Mark watched with concern, feeling more and more that she was being treated as a puzzle, not as a child. But while the grown-ups argued, the children of Riverhill grew more curious. They gathered near the edge of the field each day, hoping to catch sight of the strange girl who had come from the sky. To them, she was not frightening. She was fascinating. One afternoon, a small group of children sneaked past the guards. Among them was Sam, a lively boy with messy hair, and his younger sister, Lily. They tiptoed to the side of the tent and peered through a small opening. Inside, they saw the girl sitting alone on a chair, her glowing eyes fixed on the floor. Sam waved his hand. Hey, he whispered. The girl looked up. Her eyes widened a little, and then for the first time her lips curved into a smile. She stood and walked closer to the thin fabric that separated her from the children. Sam pressed his hand against the tent wall. The girl raised her glowing hand and placed it against the same spot. A soft light passed through the fabric. Lily gasped in delight. Wow, she whispered. She's pretty. The girl tilted her head. For a moment, she did not ask her usual question. Instead, she said softly, Do you want to play? The children exchanged surprised looks. Sam nodded eagerly. Yes, we do. The girl moved her hand through the air and glowing shapes appeared like streams of light. Stars and circles floated above her palm, drifting like fireflies. She shaped them into animals, birds, cats, and even a horse. The glowing horse galloped in the air before fading into sparks. The children clapped their hands in wonder. Lily laughed. She can make pictures in the air. The girl smiled wider, her glowing eyes filled with joy. She drew more shapes, this time letting the glowing patterns slip through the fabric of the tent so the children could touch them. The lights danced across their fingers like gentle warmth. Outside the tent, Sheriff Mark noticed the children. At first, he wanted to call them back, but when he saw the girl laughing softly with them, he stopped. It was the first time he had seen her look truly happy. Inside, Dr. Lewis also noticed. He frowned, writing in his notebook. Interesting. She responds differently to children than adults. He wanted to interrupt, but something in him held back. The children returned the next day, and the day after. Each time, the girl greeted them with a smile and new glowing patterns. She showed them stars, flowers, and even shapes of houses. The children taught her games, making funny faces and pretending to chase the glowing animals she created. But when the scientists entered the tent, her joy faded. She sat quietly, and when they questioned her again, she returned to her one answer. "Are you my daddy?" The children noticed her sadness. Sam whispered to Lily, "I think she only wants her father. That's why she asks all the time." Lily nodded. "But maybe she doesn't know who he is." The bond between the children and the alien girl grew stronger each day. They were not afraid of her glowing skin or strange powers. To them, she was just another friend who happened to be different. And in return, she treated them with a warmth that none of the adults had received. At night, as the scientists argued and the mayor worried, the children whispered to each other about their new friend. They called her Star Girl because she carried the light of the stars in her hands. The adults might have seen her as a mystery, but to the children, she was something simpler. She was a lonely girl who wanted to belong, and every time the grown-ups tried to question her, she returned to her single, haunting question, as if it was the only path to her true identity. "Are you my daddy?" The days in Riverhill grew tense. The scientists filled the field with more machines, wires, and tall antennas. Their tent glowed at night, buzzing with strange sounds. Guards kept watch, and townspeople were ordered to stay away. Still, many gathered near the fences each evening, hoping for a glimpse of the silver-skinned girl. The children managed to see her often. They whispered her new name, Star Girl, and she always greeted them with a smile. She drew glowing patterns for them, making their laughter fill the air. But when the scientists came, her light dimmed. Her voice returned to the same question, gentle and endless. "Are you my daddy?" Sheriff Mark noticed the change in her. With children, she was joyful. With adults, she was quiet, and with scientists, she seemed almost sad. Anna shared his concern. "She is not learning anything from their tests. They are only making her repeat the same words," Mark nodded. "But we have no power to stop them. They believe she holds secrets too big for us to understand." One late night, while the girl slept inside the tent, something unusual happened. Machines around her began to flicker. Screens glowed with symbols no human had ever seen before. The lights formed patterns that moved like a story across the monitors. Dr. Lewis and his team rushed to the tent. They recorded every image, their faces lit by the glowing screens. "This is it," Lewis whispered. "Her mind is opening. We are seeing her memories." On the monitors, they saw flashes of places far beyond Earth, a ship moving through storms of light, stars rushing past as if the ship traveled faster than thought, a woman with pale silver skin cradling a small baby. The baby had glowing eyes just like the girl in the tent. Then the images changed. A human man appeared. His features were clear enough to show he was not from her alien world. He held the woman's hand and touched the baby's face with wonder. But the picture grew broken. The man faded as if pulled away by distance or time. The woman held the child tightly, her face filled with sorrow. The screens flickered again. The images ended, leaving only silence and the sound of the machines. Lewis turned to his team, excitement in his voice. "You saw it. She is not only alien, she is part human. That man was her father. Somewhere in this world, a man once traveled farther than anyone has before. He left a child behind." The scientists argued about what the memories meant. Some said the girl's father had been taken into space. Others believed he had joined her alien family willingly. No one knew the truth, but all agreed the girl was searching for him. When she woke, the girl looked around the tent. Her eyes shone brighter than before, as if the dream of her memories was still fresh. She gazed at Lewis and whispered, "Are you my daddy?" Lewis felt a strange chill. He wanted to answer, but he knew he was not the one she was looking for. He stepped back, writing in his notebook again. The next morning, Mark heard about the memory images. He was not surprised. He had already guessed the girl was connected to both worlds. But what worried him was her sadness. She seemed lost, holding on to one question as her only guide. Anna spoke softly. She is not dangerous. She is lonely. If her father was real, maybe we can find him. Mark looked out at the horizon. But if the government takes her away before we learn the truth, we may never get the chance. That night, the girl sat quietly in the tent. She drew small lights in the air for herself, glowing stars that floated above her hand. She whispered to them as if speaking to someone far away. "Are you my daddy?" The lights faded, leaving only the quiet hum of machines. Outside, the children pressed their faces to the fence, wishing they could comfort her. The scientists debated, the mayor worried, and Mark struggled to decide what was right. But deep inside the silver-skinned girl, hidden memories had awakened. They showed her fragments of love, family, and loss. She carried those pieces with her, and she would not stop asking until she found the truth. "Are you my daddy?" The town of Riverhill was restless. News of the silver-skinned girl had spread quickly, and everyone in town seemed to have an opinion. Some feared she was dangerous. Others wanted to protect her. At the center of the debate was Sheriff Mark, trying to balance safety and kindness. The mayor, Henry, called a town meeting in the hall. The room filled quickly. Adults whispered, and children pressed close to the back, curious about their glowing friend. Mark stood at the front with Anna beside him. They had grown fond of the girl who everyone now secretly called Stargirl. "We must decide what to do," the mayor said, his voice tense. "The scientists insist she must be studied further, but some of you think she should stay here with us." Voices rose from the crowd. "We cannot let her stay. We don't know where she came from," one man shouted. "She is just a child. She does not belong in a lab," another voice answered. Mark raised his hand to quiet them. "Listen," he said. "We do not know everything about her. But I do know this. She is asking a question that no one has answered yet. She wants her father. We cannot ignore that," Anna added softly. "The children have spent time with her. They say she is kind and playful. She deserves care, not fear." The room fell quiet. Even the mayor looked unsure. He had always trusted the scientists, but the sincerity in Mark's and Anna's voices made him pause. Outside, the girl waited, sitting on a small chair in the field. She watched the town hall, glowing faintly in the evening light. Every time she thought about her father, her eyes seemed brighter. Her question had not changed. "Are you my daddy?" After long discussion, the townspeople reached a decision. The girl would remain in Riverhill under the care of Mark, Anna, and the children. The scientists would observe her from a distance but not interfere directly. The mayor hoped this compromise would satisfy everyone. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Mark led the girl to the hall. The children gathered around, eager to see her. She smiled at them, her glow soft and warm. "Are you my daddy?" she asked quietly, looking at Mark. Mark knelt to her level. "No, I am not," he said gently. "But we will help you. You are not alone anymore." The girl tilted her head and blinked. She seemed to understand. She reached out her hand and the children held hers. Together they formed a small circle, a tiny family of their own. Meanwhile, the scientists watched from a distance. Dr. Lewis frowned but did not approach. He wrote notes quickly, observing her interactions. Even from afar, he noticed something remarkable. The girl's abilities seemed stronger when she was happy. Her glowing patterns were brighter and more vivid when she laughed with the children. Late at night, Mark and Anna spoke quietly near the tent. "She will ask the question forever if we do not find an answer," Anna said. "I know," Mark replied. "But at least she is safe here. And she has friends. That is more than she had before." Inside the tent, the girl lay on a soft bed. She closed her eyes but whispered softly to herself, "Are you my daddy?" The children waited outside, hoping to see her glow through the fabric. They knew she was dreaming of something far away, of a father she had never met. The town had made its choice, but the question remained unanswered. It hovered in the air above Riverhill, touching every heart. Some feared what the future would bring. Some hoped it would bring joy. But one thing was certain. The silver-skinned girl had changed the town forever. She was no longer just a mystery. She was part of Riverhill, part of the children's world, and part of the hearts of those who had chosen to care for her. And still, her question echoed gently through the night. "Are you my daddy?" The silver-skinned girl had become the center of Riverhill's life. Children visited her every day, and the adults who cared for her watched over her carefully. But the question she asked, soft and endless, still hung in the air. Are you my daddy? Sheriff Mark and Anna knew the girl's father must be out there somewhere. They decided to search quietly without alerting the government scientists who were still observing her from a distance. The children helped too, gathering stories and looking through old town records. They began by visiting the local library, a small building filled with newspapers and town archives. Sam and Lily, the two children closest to the girl, flipped through pages excitedly. Look at this, Sam said, pointing at an old photo. It shows a man near the airfield. People said he disappeared during a test flight years ago. Anna examined the photo carefully. The man looked human, strong and kind. Something about his face seemed familiar, almost as if it was connected to the girl. Mark leaned over, studying the article beside the photo. It mentioned a young pilot named Daniel, who had vanished mysteriously. Witnesses said a strange light had surrounded his plane the night he disappeared. Could this be her father? Anna whispered. Mark did not answer. He only stared at the photo, thinking about the question the girl asked every day. The tiny silver-skinned child might finally have a clue. The team of helpers, including the children, continued searching. They visited the old airfield where Daniel had last been seen. Rusted hangars and abandoned planes filled the area. The wind blew gently as if carrying memories from the past. Sam found a small metal box buried under a pile of sand. Inside were letters and photographs from Daniel. One photo showed him with a woman holding a glowing-eyed baby, the image of a child that looked exactly like their friend, the silver-skinned girl. The children gasped. Lily whispered, "This is her." "That's her." Mark held the photo carefully. "We need to be sure. We cannot tell her yet until we know it is real." Meanwhile, the girl had been watching quietly from the tent. She could feel something different, a change in the air. Her glowing eyes brightened. For the first time, she seemed hopeful. She whispered softly to herself, "Daddy?" That evening, Mark, Anna, and the children gathered in the tent with the girl. They showed her the photograph. Her glowing eyes widened and she reached out, touching the photo gently. Her small hands trembled with emotion. "Daddy?" she whispered, her voice soft but full of wonder. Tears formed in Anna's eyes. She had never seen the girl react like this before. The child had been searching for so long, asking the same question, and now perhaps she had found a piece of the answer. The adults discussed carefully what to do next. The government had planned to take the girl away the following morning. If they acted too quickly, she would be gone before she could meet the father she had been seeking. Mark made a decision. "We cannot let them take her. We must help her find Daniel first." Anna nodded. "It is dangerous, but she deserves this chance. She deserves to know." That night, the girl lay in the tent, holding the photograph close. She whispered softly, staring at the stars above the tent fabric. "Are you my daddy?" For the first time, she seemed to believe the answer was near. Somewhere beyond River Hill, the man she had been searching for, the one from her hidden memories, might still be alive. She could almost feel him calling to her, though she had never met him. The town waited in silence. Everyone who cared for her knew the next day could change everything. The silver-skinned girl's journey to find her father had begun, and nothing would stop her now. Even as the night grew deeper, the soft question echoed quietly in the tent, mixing with hope and the whisper of the stars. "Are you my daddy?" The sun had barely risen over River Hill, painting the hills in shades of gold and pink. The town was quiet, almost holding its breath. The silver-skinned girl, holding the photograph of the man who might be her father, sat in the tent surrounded by children and Sheriff Mark. Anna stood close, watching her gently. Outside, black trucks filled the field. Government scientists had arrived early, preparing to take the girl away for study. Dr. Lewis stepped out, speaking firmly. "We must move her now. She belongs with us for observation." Mark stepped forward. "No, she is not going anywhere until we find her father. You will not take her from River Hill today." The tension was high. The scientists hesitated, unsure how far the sheriff could push. Meanwhile, the children clung to the girl, holding her hands and whispering encouragement. Sam whispered to her, "Don't worry. We will help you." The girl looked at each of them, her glowing eyes shining brighter than ever. She felt their love and protection, the warmth she had never felt before. Slowly, she stepped outside into the morning light, the photograph held tightly in her small hands. "Are you my daddy?" she asked softly, looking at the horizon. Mark gently lifted her hand. "We don't know yet, but we will find him," he said. The children formed a line behind her, holding hands. They led her across the field toward the old airfield where the pilot Daniel had disappeared years ago. The machines of the scientists hummed and beeped, but they did not follow closely. Even they seemed to feel the importance of this moment. As they reached the center of the airfield, a strange light began to appear in the sky. It was not the blue light from before, but soft and golden, filling the field with warmth. The girl's glow matched it, and she looked up in wonder. Then, as if answering her question, a man appeared at the edge of the light. He stepped down slowly, careful not to scare her. His eyes were wide, and his face showed surprise and awe. He was older than the photograph, but there was no mistaking him. He was Daniel, the father she had been searching for. The girl's small voice rang out clearly, full of hope. "Daddy?" Daniel froze for a moment, unable to speak. Then he knelt to her level, tears shining in his eyes. I think I am," he whispered. She ran forward and threw herself into his arms. The glow around her shone brighter than ever, as if the stars themselves were celebrating. He held her tightly, feeling the connection that had been missing for so many years. The children watched in awe. Sam whispered to Lily. She finally found him. Lily nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. Mark and Anna stood back, smiling quietly. The town had waited a long time for this moment, and now it had come. The silver-skinned girl had found the one she had been asking for, the answer to her endless question. Dr. Lewis watched from a distance. He was silent for a long time, then finally said, "Perhaps we were wrong. Not everything can be studied with machines. Some things are found with the heart." The girl held her father's hand, and for the first time she did not ask the question again. She only smiled and whispered softly, "I found you." Daniel smiled back, tears running down his face. "I found you too." The townspeople gathered quietly at the edge of the field. They had seen something extraordinary. A child who came from the stars had found her father, and the world felt bigger, kinder, and full of wonder because of it. The children ran to the field to greet the girl and her father. Laughter filled the morning air. The golden light glowed over River Hill, and the soft hum of happiness replaced the tension that had ruled the town for weeks. The silver-skinned girl looked at her new family, at the people who had cared for her, and at the stars above. She knew she belonged to more than one world now. She had a father, friends, and a town that loved her, and though she had asked the same question so many times, it no longer felt heavy. She had found her answer, and her heart was full. "Daddy," she said again, softly and happily this time, and Daniel smiled, holding her close as the morning sunlight touched them all. River Hill had changed forever, and the story of the silver-skinned girl would be remembered for generations. A story of hope, love, and the journey to find family across worlds. The girl looked at the sky one last time, glowing brightly. She was home.